Welcome students of Form 3, the Caribbean History class. In this video, we're gonna take a question from the second trimester of 2025, and I'm gonna put it into pieces, and step by step, I'm gonna walk you through the answer. But the most important thing is also that you understand the answer. And not only learn it by heart, senhor for de cabeça, pero também compreender e contestar. Muito bom? Bom. So, the question, describe Henry the Navigator and in particular, so this is like the focus of the question, in particular, his importance for the emergence, the growth, the growth, the step-by-step growing of the European slave trade of captured Africans in a bare minimum of eight phrases. If it is 7 phrases, 9 phrases, it's not that bad, but it has to be a longer answer. And I know you guys do not like to write nowadays, but it's really important that you also learn how to work on essay questions. Let's go through the answer. This is, by the way, Henry the Navigator. He was from Portugal. And here we have Spain, and to the west of Spain, we have Portugal, bordering the Mediterranean and more bordering the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. So what is his relationship with the emergence of the European trade in captured Africans? Well, Henry, he was nobility. He was Henry the Navigator, a very important nobleman, even king of Portugal, and he used his wealth, riqueza, to promote travel and navigation. What does that mean? He invested his money in map production, so maps of Africa, maps of the Atlantic Ocean, maps of the Mediterranean, to better sail and travel to locations in Africa and in Europe and around the Mediterranean. He invested in that, so that is very important. And he also invested into an astrolabe, of which you see a piece behind me. And an astrolabe was an instrument originally coming from the Arab world, so the very other side of Europe, that could navigate the seas and the oceans by looking at the stars and making mathematical equations and calculations by looking at the stars. By the way, all these mathematical things, I would never be able to do that. I would lose my way in the middle of the ocean. But he invested in these things. For instance, Henry the Navigator, before he was a navigator or a king, he fought in North Africa and had seen very rich Arab traders and thought by himself, mi por hazie también, I can do this too. I just have to invest. He became very interested in Africa and started to invest. So put money in creating maps. There are special map makers, people who are specialized in drawing maps and taking journeys, and also the astrolabe, improving on it, using on it, training people to use it. And also, because Henry Navigator invested in that, Portugal sailed along the coast of Africa, southwards, and they discovered Madeira, which was at the time uninhabited. And the Portuguese, in the 15th century, between 1400 and 1500, they populated Madeira because they started to sail southwards along the coast of Africa. And Madeira was discovered and populated. And by the way, they wanted to sail the coast of Africa because like Columbus later on, like Columbus some 50 years later, they wanted to find a new route to the spices, like Columbus some 50 years later. Now, what does this have to do with the emergence, a growth of the trade, European trade in enslaved Africans? Well, one of the seamen that works for Henry and traveled to Africa and mapped the west coast of Africa was this person, Gillian. My Portuguese is not very good. And he brought the first 200 slaves to Portugal. So he traveled to West Africa, and he came onto the idea of, okay, these people, these African people, we can use them as workers. Let's bring them back to Portugal, and let's see the reaction of the people that they have never seen African people before, black people before, and also let's put them to work in Portugal. So they were kidnapped, you could say, and brought back to Portugal, of which you see a piece above. So this Gil Ian, of which you see the name now marked, he brought the first 200 slaves to Portugal, and this was an assignment of Henry the Navigator because he invested in voyages to Africa, of which Gil Ian was one of the persons working for him, works for Henry. And from this came that Gil Ian brought back to Portugal from the coast of West Africa, brought back black Africans to Portugal to work in Portugal around 1450. So during the middle of the 15th century, this happened already. This is very early. Yeah? Also, another thing that's interesting for Curacao, as you know, in Curacao we have people from Madeira living on Curacao. So Portuguese people began to live on Madeira, and some centuries later they came to Curacao. I don't know about you, but I think that's very interesting, and I hope you think the same. So Gillian brought the first 200 slaves to Portugal, and also the Portuguese sailed first. They sailed to Madeira, and later on to the Canary Islands, and later on they traveled to Capo Verde, yeah, and there they brought the slaves that they got from West Africa, and that is also the place where the founder of our school, Frank Martinez Arion, says this is the place where, like the birthplace of something that looks like our Papiamento. The mixture of Portuguese with African grammar of African languages, yeah, that was spoken by the Portuguese to communicate with African people and also mixed people of mixed descent, was the language that was created or originated there. Yeah? So Madeira and also later on Cabo Verde, yeah, the Kaapverdië, we say in Dutch, that is the place where something was created or something originated or something grew that is much like the language, the Papiamento, the Creole language that is spoken on Curacao, still some 500 years later, but it originated on the island of Cape Verde. Yeah. So here we have Madeira, here we have the Canary Islands, and here we have Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, and that is the place where Papiamento, or the predecessor, antepasado, idioma antepasado, de voorganger van de taal, Nostra llama Papiamento, originated on that island. And the founder of our school, Frank Martinez Arion, he wrote a book that I have in my classroom about this, The Kiss of a Slave, that book is called, and it's very interesting, in which he explains about the origins of Papiamento. And one of the theories about that is that it originated on this island. Portuguese people came to this island and people from the west of Africa. And to be able to communicate between African people, Portuguese people, people of mixed descent, they're formed, and after later on also with the grammar that was created, but it formed itself probably naturally on the island of Cabo Verde, Cape Verde in Dutch. Yeah, so that's very important. And also, last thing to mention, which is also very important, is that one of the reasons that Henry the Navigator sent out people like Gillian to discover locations in West Africa was to find a new route to the spices. So the route to the spices and the longing and the desire for the spices indirectly created also the emergence of European slave trade in enslaved Africans, in enslaved people. Yeah. So I also explained this during class that one, we have the desire for spices. Two, we have people who try to discover new routes to the spices. And three, from there, the desire to find new routes to the spices came the European slave trade in Africans. Yeah. So the desire for spices indirectly was an important cause to enslave people from Africa and the Europeans getting them from Africa. But it happened first by the Portuguese around the 1450s, and he brought them first to Portugal around 1450. I hope this was a clear video, and I hope to see you soon in my class. And I hope, again, that I helped you with this video. Goodbye.